he's going to start the meeting now because people need to start.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Leesburg Area School District's monthly board meeting on Wednesday, January 27th, 2021 at the Leesburg High School Auditorium at 7:50. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, please be seated. First announcement before roll call is that we had an executive session meeting for personnel issues starting at 6:30 in the school library. Personnel and legal matters. And that happens before every board meeting that we have. Ms. Turner, can I have roll call, please?
Here.
Thank you. Needed a motion for the approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting minutes of 12/02/2020, rescheduled from 11/25/2020, and for the reorganization meeting minutes of 12/09/2020. Do I have a motion? Comments? All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Next, we'll go to the board committee reports, student representative reports. Do we have any students? Oh, yep. Thank you.
So me and another student have been working on the Giving Closet since October, and I'm almost done with it. And
We got the homecoming court for the class of 2021 on Tuesday. So they'll record themselves in their speeches and the students will watch them during 8th period into remediation, and then they'll get an email to vote on it. And then the ceremony thing where they find out who the queen is in between the JV and varsity game on February 16th. And the girls are Madison Hainan, Skylin Raypush, Arvin Rack, McKenna Pierce, and Olivia Scheimer.
And this next, do you need to talk about the boards now or wait?
Sure, we can talk about that now. So these lovely things in front of you are your board appreciation, which I'll talk about that in a minute, but they are charcuterie boards, or AKA fancy cheese boards. So the students made those for you this year. So Arlen was is one of our very talented students. She's going to talk about the process behind it.
So to create the art itself, you go through Adobe Illustrator and compile all the artwork. And then we had woodshop students sand down all the boards so it would be nice and smooth. And then we send the artwork to the laser engraver, which basically wood burns the artwork into the wood. And then we put a food safe coating on it and some handles, and there you have it. Thank you.
And for those of you that are out there, that's nice, and this will be very nice to use. I love cheese. You ask my daughters or our teachers here, but I will use it a lot.
And
Thank
just so
you.
know, it didn't cost anything for anybody watching out there. The students made it from all repurposed materials that we have within the district.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
very nice.
Thank
Thank you. Next, we have the Aaron Intermediate Unit Report by Mrs. Stewart.
We met via Zoom last Tuesday night and tentatively adopted the 2021-2022 Aaron General Operating Budget of $3,427,394. That budget will be sent to us and all the other member districts for approval during the month of February. Thank you.
Next is Lenape Monthly Report by Mr. Shea. Mr. Lovelace.
Yes, have a little bit of good news. Lenape had a little bit of an overage, so Leechburg will be getting back $89,454.05. They'll spread the payments out over 5 billing cycles. On Friday, January 22nd, Lenape hosted a local advisory meeting via Zoom. This meeting updates the community on what's going on at Lenape. And then the next 2 months, February and March, there will be a review of the budget for 21-22. So lots of fun there. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Next is the Armstrong County Tax Collection Committee Report by Mr. Brady, myself. There were no meetings. Supposedly, we will have a meeting scheduled in the March timeframe, and we'll wait to hear about that. So until then, and as I've mentioned before, they only have 2 meetings a year now versus every quarter. So, but really from the, in those collection committee reports, there have been few, if any, complaints that have been going on over the past 3 to 5 years since we selected a new tax collection group. Next would be the PSBA member liaison report. Mrs. Knight.
Okay, so, as far as November 27, 2020, there was a response release supplemental appropriations act 2021, signed into law, provided $54.3 billion to elementary, secondary, school emergency relief funds. The funds awarded to the SBA are same portion state receipt funds under Part A of Title I of the Elementary Secondary Education Act of 1965 as amended in fiscal school year. Pennsylvania is to receive $2.2 billion in that federal relief. And officially, Betsy DeVos is no longer the Secretary of Education, and they've not sworn in the new one yet, but I'm very happy about that. Celebration all around.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Mark Turnley and he will do the presentation of the district independent audit.
Board members, Ms. Nix, thanks for having me here this evening. I just wanted to go over the results of the audit for the school district for the year ended June 30th, 2020. In front of you this evening, I put a thick copy of the audit report itself, but for the purposes of the meeting tonight, I put a synopsis of the highlights of the report that I really wanted to go over with the board. So if you could follow along with me on those particular pages, that would be great. Just a couple comments about the thick audit report itself, just to mention to the board members. In the very beginning of that audit report, from my perspective, probably one of the more important couple pages is the independent auditor's opinion. And what we've given the district this year, as we have in the past, is what's known as an unmodified opinion. And in our profession, what an unmodified opinion means is that the information that's presented in the body of the audit report is presented in conformity with the rules and regulations of our profession, and there are no departures from that. So in layman's terms, that's a good thing. That's a type of opinion that you want to have. Subsequent to that independent auditor's opinion, there's always a section that I tell my board members, encourage you to read at your leisure. It's called the management discussion and analysis, and it runs from Roman numeral page 3 to Roman numeral page 15. And the reason I call that to your attention is the purpose of that is to provide you with the highlights, again, similar to what I'm going to do this evening, but in a more brief manner, to provide you the highlights of the financial results of the district, not only for the year under audit, which is 1920, but also with comparative information, 1819 versus 1920, plus other financial factors that are important to the reader, not only the board, but any third-party reader that requests a copy of the audit report. So again, it's well written. It's written by your management team. It's not written by me. We review it, but it's just a document that's required to be in the front of the audit report. And again, I think it's a good read. It helps give you a good, quick understanding of how the district did for the year. Now, turning your attention to this synopsis, on the first page of that, I give the board members a 5-year history of your largest fund here at the district, your main operating fund, which is the general fund, so that you can see where you ended up at the end of each year. And if you look at the bottom of this page, you can see the most recent year, 1920, you ended the year with $6,293,915. So that was almost a 13% increase from the last fiscal year. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. On the top of page 2 is another tabular analysis of a portion of your fund balance. Your fund balance is broken down into amounts that are unassigned, which are available for general operating purposes, and amounts that are either restricted or assigned for other particular purposes. Here at Leechburg School District, this table simply is the unassigned, what's available for general operations purpose of your total fund balance. So that if you look at the last line here for the 1920 year, you see $1,532,000. That's part of the figure that I just talked to you about on page 1 of the overall $6,293,000. The difference between those two amounts is money that the board has either committed for particular purposes or assigned for particular purposes. There's approximately $1.1 million of money committed for capital improvements, teasers, retirement rate increases, healthcare increases, things of that nature. And there's another $3.6 million that has been assigned for other particular purposes. In that thick audit report, and this will be the last reference to that report that I'll go, in that thick audit report on page 22 is a breakdown by category of what you have committed your monies for and what you've assigned your monies for. I've just given you the totals that I talked about, but when you look at that particular page 22, you're going to see exactly what you assigned and committed those monies for. Below that, in the first paragraph on page 2, I talk about what percentage this unassigned fund balance is as a percentage of your budget. And as of 6/30/20, it's exactly 10%. And why that's important, why the 10% threshold is important is because the Department of Education said back in 2003, passed an act that said if the board ever wanted to consider raising its millage above and beyond the state index threshold that they give you each year anyway, they give you a certain increase. There's a state index increase that every school is entitled to. If you ever wanted to or thought about or needed to raise your millage above and beyond that index, you have to pass a budget whereby your unassigned fund balance, which is why I gave you this separate table stipulating what that amount is, has to be at or below a certain threshold depending on your budget side. For Leechburg, that magic percentage is 10%. So through planning, we make sure that the unassigned, not me, but your management team, make sure that your unassigned amount is exactly or less than that 10% threshold. And everything else is prudently assigned or committed for the purposes that I just talked about. So as of 6/30/20, again, you are in compliance with the state's guidelines to keep below that threshold. And that's an important thing to have. There's an organization in our profession known as the Government Finance Officers Association. And we get board members all the time say, Mark, what's a good fund balance level, an unassigned fund balance that's available for general operations? So this GFOA said, based on their research, a target goal is roughly 2 months average expenditures out of your general fund for the district. So in this second paragraph on this second page, I did the math there just to do the math to tell the board, your 2 months worth of expenditures is about $2.4 million. But the problem with the GFOA's recommendation is they don't take into, although that would be ideal to have that as an unassigned amount, which is what they say is a target goal. You have enough money in assigned and committed that if you wanted to, you could say, we're going to unassign it and we're going to put it in the unassigned available for operations so that we meet the GFOA target. The problem with that would then put you over that 10% threshold that I've been talking about. So it's really, it's a nice thing to think about, a nice target that you know you could have because you have the sufficient funds, but you simply just wouldn't want to do because you'd be out of compliance with what PDE wants you to be. So I just bring that to your attention because there is a target goal for fund balance out there that our profession recognizes. At the bottom of this, the last paragraph on this page is nothing more than what I've been telling you about the monies that have been set aside, assigned, and committed for specific purposes. On page 3, I show the board again a 5-year history of the general fund revenues and expenditures. If you look at revenues, you can see how tight it was this past year when compared to last fiscal year, the bottom line, an increase of almost of 35,818, so very close to last year. With regard to expenditures, once again, looking at the last line for this year, you can see in actuality there was a decrease of almost 248,000 when compared to last fiscal year, about 1.7%. Below that on page 3 and then going on to page 4, I did just a quick analysis of how you did budget versus actual. The first bullet point at the bottom of 3 says actual revenues exceeded budget, which is always the way you want it to be, but by only 48,367. So that was very tight, closed budgeting with regard to general fund revenues. When you look at the top of page 4, the second bullet point talks about budgeted expenditures. Budgeted expenditures exceeded actual, which if you had one way or the other to go, this is the way you would want to go. You want your actual to be under your budget if you can. In this particular case for the 1920 year, you were under budget by a little over $1 million, $1,048,000, about 6.8% variance. And when you, on page 7 in that thick audit report is a little more detail between, among your functional areas of expenditures, instruction, special education, vocational education, pupil personnel, all the various expenditure categories. We show a budget versus actual look and then a variance. And you can see when you look at that across the board, most of those functional categories are under budget. And in the largest 3 that are under budget, which I have in my second bullet point, were your special program instruction, about 167,000 under, the overall operation and maintenance of the school district plant services under by 189,000, and then student transportation, of course, as a result of COVID, under by 182,000. So again, that's the position you want to be in. The last bullet point simply says that when you prepared the budget, when the board approved their budget going into the 1920 year, you had planned to utilize about $376,000 of your general fund balance reserves in order to balance your budget. But in actuality, what happened in the 1920 year is you had excess revenues over expenditures. So not only did you not have to use the $376,000 to balance your budget, you actually had a gain, if you will, in your general fund of $720,126 for the year. Below that table at the bottom, there are 2 other financial facets that are in your audit report that I just wanted to mention to you. The first 2 lines of that schedule at the bottom of page 4, when I have full accrual financial statements, in addition to the near-term look that we have been talking about, how you budget on an annual basis and how you did actual versus budget, you're also required, all governmental entities, to be in compliance with those rules and regulations that I talked about at the beginning of my presentation. You also have to prepare a balance sheet and an income statement on what would be a consolidated basis that a business would use, whereby you put into the balance sheet your fixed assets, your building, your equipment, things of that nature, and you also have to put your long-term debt on there as well and see where you end up. And when you look at this first line that says net position, you're going to see a big negative figure there of $9,583,000. And Mark, you just told us 2 minutes ago that we had over $6 million in our fund balance. Now you're telling us we have a negative $9 million. But this is more of an accounting feature and a consolidated look. And the reason you have this deficit net position, when you look at it from that perspective, just like all my other school district clients, is a number of years ago, about 5 or 6 now, you were required to put on your balance sheet a liability for your proportionate share of the PSERS obligation, the retirement obligation to your employees from now until the time they retire. It's an actuarially calculated number, not something that Mark Turnley does. It's from an actuarial firm. I take that number and put it on the balance sheet. When that is put on your balance sheet for Leechburg School District, that number, that magic number, was a little bit over $21 million. So you can see that that's something would definitely drive you into a deficit position. There's also another liability that's required to be recognized is, per your collective bargaining agreements, you are committed to your employees to pay a certain health insurance for them at the time of retirement through Medicare eligibility. And there's a calculation that goes along with that. And that calculation is another 3.5 million liability that has to be shown on this consolidated balance sheet. But as I tell my board members every year, the good thing about this is it's more an accounting issue that we have to reflect more than the fact that tomorrow morning you have to write a check to PSERS for 21 million, which is obviously not the case. But that's why on this particular snapshot that I'm showing you, you see this deficit negative figure.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And that, just for explanation, I mean, it refers to multiple years going out into the future, a possible debt of the school district based on the actuarial tables, not a year-to-year comparison, not a annual revenue to expenses comparison.
That's correct.
Which distorts it on here, but it doesn't give us our operating budget.
That's correct. And when you think about it, you budget for every year the PSERS payment that you have to make. It's not as if you're not paying those on an annual basis. You are meeting that obligation, even though that percentage that you owe has increased significantly over the last so many years. You are still budgeting for that and paying for that on an annual basis. So this is, as Mr. Brady says, this is more of an accounting issue that's over a long period of time than a short-term version of looking at it.
Thank you.
Below that is the food service operations. I'll just simply call your attention to the second line under that, change in net position, which is really a fancy name for profit and loss for the year. And you can see for the 6/30/20 year, you had a loss of only $3,000, almost a break-even situation. And that compares favorably to last year, where there was a loss of $17,828. So again, a much smaller fund here at the district, but nevertheless important for the board to know the results of that activity for the year. And then on page 5, I already addressed some of the issues here. And there was, prior to me, there was the report on the COVID and the ESSERS funding that everybody's receiving at the very end of the 1920 year, and then up through just recently in January, the total local ESSERS award for Leechburg School District was about $889,000. So I just caution, and this is more probably for Dina than anybody else, but with this type of money that comes in, there's regulations, you spend it in the right way, and the accounting has to be done a certain way. So I've been cautioning all my districts, just make sure you handle that money, and spend it in accordance with their guidelines so you don't have any problems down the road. And I'm sure you will. I don't anticipate any. It's more a cautionary comment than anything else. Yes.
Does that include the 711?
Yes,
we're
that's.
getting in the future?
Well, I took that allocation from the PDE website, which says ESSERS 2 funding.
Yeah.
And that's
I just
included in
wanted to make
it.
sure I'm like, whoa.
Yes,
So, okay.
yes. And that'll run, most likely run beyond the 2021 year also,
Right.
because I think you have a longer time span to spend that. So, And who knows if there'll be a third allocation? Let's hope so, but that's what it is for now. And basically, I think from a highlight perspective, that's the main issues that I wanted to go over with the board. As always, I know you're seeing this for the first time, but if you have any questions at this time, I'm more than happy to answer them. But if you don't, and you're going through that report and you say, boy, we'd like to have Mark back to go over some other issues, or you want to call my office directly, we're always open to do either of those two options at the board's pleasure.
I think just from the general operating procedures that we do within a school, we fall within the acceptable methods of the GAP and so forth, you know, of accounting policies and procedures.
Yes, yes.
Which there weren't any concerns this year at all.
No, no. I think just as a side comment, I didn't put it in because you have a new business manager this year, working with Dina during the audit time. It's always a good time for her. I'll maybe speak to her with my back towards you, Dina. I apologize. But to look at the overall internal controls of how things operate, that fresh perspective. Maybe things can be tweaked one way or the other. Mark Turnley might do something one way. Dina Turner may do something another way. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just a matter of preference. But it's always when you have a new person that's in that position, it's always a fresh time to look at all the controls and make sure everything's tightened up as much as possible.
Questions? Appreciate this.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Next, under administrative reports.
That's all me. So first, it is School Director Recognition Month, and again, I hope you enjoyed your cheese tray and have a nice party whenever you're able to get back together. So I loved it. I loved that the students and the teachers came together to do that. So I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed. They wouldn't let me see it as the process was going on. So I don't know if anybody realizes how much of a time commitment it is to be a school board member. So just these meetings alone, it could be 15 hours a week or 15 hours a month. I'm sorry. So take that over 12 months, plus all the preparation just to get into these meetings. I'm just alone these individual reports, and they're on separate committees, and they have more time to do for that. And God love you all, during COVID, I mean, it has been insane, and they've had to deal with a lot, like things changing at a moment's notice. And I would like to speak for myself and for the entire district, and the 9 of you are our lifeline here. So thank you so much for everything that you do, all the time that you put in. I know it's not just, dealing with me here at the school and the issues that we face, but it's the community as well. And I think that they do an excellent job representing the community. So thank you so much from all of us. So there's also been a number of changes and things going on. First of all, it's been a while. It's been, I think, 3 weeks since our last meeting. So the Department of Health and Pennsylvania Department of Education said a long time ago that when you're in substantial, you should be all virtual. So we have put forth the extra effort, the teachers, the paraprofessionals, the custodians, the cafeteria workers, everyone's been working really hard to keep our students in 4 days a week. So 2 or 3 weeks ago, they came out and said, never mind, we want elementary schools to be in session at some point. So we're already ahead of the game. So I'm excited about that. And that's because of a collaborative effort with the school staff and the school board. So we thank you for that. So we're right on target with that. As you know, the election happened and new members of Congress and various departments of the government has changed over. I was fortunate enough to meet with our new state representative, Jason Silvas, on Friday via a Zoom meeting. And I was lucky because I was the superintendent representative. So it was nice to speak from Leechburg's behalf, because a lot of times it's larger schools that get to say, and this time it was us. So 2 pushes that we are doing just as a collective group is the charter reform. So he had no idea, I mean, he's brand new, about what school districts go through and taxpayers go through just to fund public education. And because of our staff this year,
our virtual education isn't costing a dime to the taxpayers, which I can't speak enough on behalf of our staff. We're working so hard. Whereas, you know, if these students would have went to charter cyber schools, I mean, we would have had to have closed the doors. So that is one thing that we're pushing for. And the second one was eliminating the testing in the spring. Our students and our staff have been through so much. So collectively, as educational institutions, we are saying, please stop the testing in the spring. It's too much for our kids. They're under so much pressure. And now we are prepping, you know, in our everyday education for these tests, but that's just an extra level. So if there were two things I wanted him to take away, it was one, charter education reform and the elimination of the spring testing. Also new is, Mrs. Knight was saying about our ESSER account. Right now, we're getting $711,000, and though that's going to allow us to put a lot of emphasis on remediating and enriching our students for time lost from March through today. So in February, so I'm bringing up February. In that first meeting, there's a lot going on. First of all, our entire administrative team will be here to give you an update. So it'll be maintenance, special ed, cafeteria, principals, who am I missing? So every department will be representative to give an update. But on top of that, we are going to be talking about our induction plan that you have to vote on and we'll be presenting. That's all part of our new comprehensive plan that's going to be due in November. So Mrs. Ferlino was kind enough to be the school board representative. We met last Tuesday to start talking about what our comprehensive plan looks like. And this time it's become a lot more time consuming because it's very strict how you do it. And we have to make these sub plans. So all these plans that we're going to be presenting you one at a month to chop it up is all based on our data. Now, unfortunately, this data is from 2 years ago because that was the last time the students were tested. But you will see, and it will become clearer to you, which I want to give kudos to the high school staff and administration and the students and the parents to say 5 years ago, we were in the bottom 15% of all high schools in Pennsylvania, and that we're closer to the top now, and that was because of hard work. Now, through our data, our elementary and middle school is now our target point. Doug reminded me that whenever in 2016, only 7% of our students at the middle school level were proficient in math, we're up to 35%, and the state average is 36. But that math, I think 35% of being proficient is not acceptable. So you will see as these plans go on, and our upper math or our upper level elementary and our middle school math, how we're going to increase student achievement. I wish I brought my glasses. So furthermore, we're comfortable with our COVID situation. We're comfortable with our education. It's time to now push on to next year. So in January, this is typical, we start thinking ahead. So throughout the next few months, we're going to be what we're calling the roadmap, presenting that to all of you. So all of these situations that could happen going into next year, depending on COVID, I would just want all of you to be comfortable knowing that we're not sitting still, we're all moving ahead together to make the best situation for our students. Let me see here, I'm sorry. Vaccine update. So anyone who's associated with children in Pennsylvania, they're eligible for the 1B vaccine. So a couple of weeks ago, we were told that this is going to roll out pretty quickly. So we were hoping by the first week of February, we would start to get the vaccines. Now, last week, we had the opportunity for people that are in high risk to put them into 1A. We collected the data from the staff. I sent that, hoping that this week would be the week. And I got the update from Armstrong County just this morning that the county did not receive any vaccines. So not only are we not done with 1A, we're nowhere close to moving to 1B. So as time goes on, I will be updating the vaccine situation because it's very fluid. We were very hopeful, but of course, those that are high risk and elderly really need to get those. So we are going to patiently wait our turn. Let me see. As part of that grant, the $711,000, I talked about the enrichment program that we're going to be bringing to you for a summer school program. And also that will also purchase all of our technology as well. We do continue and will always continue to be a one-on-one school and also provide internet services for those students in need. So those are the things that have been going on in the three weeks since we met last. So that is my update. Does anybody have any questions on anything coming up or in the past or things you're seeing or reading in the media that I can help clarify? I'm happy to answer any questions. But one thing we do need to talk about is our virtual Wednesdays. At the last meeting, we had discussed it with no end date. Technically, they ended this past Wednesday. So I just need to guide our families of what's next, and when they could expect to revisit that again. So is that something that we want to continue? I am advocating for that, to continue with the virtual Wednesdays. I would like to give the families like a month or two notice. So if we want to say like we'll go every month and then reevaluate at the end of the month, whatever you feel comfortable doing, I will then pass that out to the families. But it is a motion tonight to redo our plan, just because we have to put a date on there for families.
I have a question on that.
Mm-hmm.
When would the grading period end, the third one that will be starting or work?
So I like, if you don't mind, I'll look at my calendar. So
Maybe
it's,
go by grading periods, then that way the grading would be consistent if we're back, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
we all-
so it started, so we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It'll be the week of, it should be the week of March 15th. That'll be the 9 weeks. And then you had asked last time about Easter break. So Easter this year is April 4th. And so we do come back, I believe that April 7th is a Wednesday. Because there's a day off and it's either the 6th or the 7th we come back. So I'm open to suggestions. I'm happy to make a suggestion. It's really, it doesn't matter. Wednesday. Mhm.
I think until the end of the year makes sense as well. You know, the grading period, that's sooner than what I think it should be. Easter, it's right. I mean, if we're gonna get till April,
Yeah.
I think the end of the school year is a good,
then it should happen. I mean, and I think that's gonna happen the whole time.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
As long as you have a choice whether
Oh, yeah.
you are at home or in school, then it should happen.
Mhm. I'm not planning on taking that away. So yeah, we're
That,
absolutely.
that's my opinion.
and I think the Wednesdays gives the teachers a chance to recoup. It gives them to become, adjust also to it. And also from the cleaning aspect, that what we've done in the disinfecting, we have been very fortunate here compared to other schools with doing this and, with the number of students that have gotten COVID. I mean, and even today, they mentioned in the newspaper that they felt, I was reading it this morning, that they feel that there's not a lot of transmission of COVID in the school districts. It's happening outside, and the comment they made was on athletics, that, anything that is being transmitted is being done through athletic and extracurricular activities. And we have the masks for our extracurricular activities. So I think the Wednesdays is good to continue.
For Wednesdays.
From who?
From
Community
Wednesdays.
members,
Oh,
parents.
community members. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
No, that's okay.
No, I can only speak for me, and well, I can speak for the two principals too, because we talk all the time. I have not received one negative comment. Not one.
And if there was an outbreak or something, that would dictate to us, the CDC and the State Department of Health would dictate to us what the days would have to be or how long we would have to, close the schools and so forth.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, that chart, I follow it to a T. Every time I get something, I go to that chart instantly to see what we need to do.
Right, yeah. Okay, so everybody feels comfortable with putting it to the end of the school year?
and then that'll come up later on.
Yeah, that's a vote at the agenda. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I conclude my long discussion. Thank you.
Thank you on that, Ms. Nix. Are there, Ms. Turner, are there any comments on agenda items that we received? Okay, thank you. Therefore, we'll move on to new business. A motion is needed to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Leechburg Area School District and the Leechburg Area Education Association, alternative delivery of educational instruction during COVID-19 for the 2020-2021 school year as submitted in Exhibit A1. And do I have a motion? Comments? All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? None. Motion passes. Thank you. Motion is needed to hire the following two supplemental positions for the 2020-2021 school year pending successful completion and receipt of all required clearances under Act 24, Act 34, Act 114, Act 151, and Act 168, and commencement of the activity as indicated. Mrs. Jolene Young, National Honor Society Advisor. Mrs. Shell Prorock, Art Club Advisor. Mr. Mark George, Head Coach Varsity Track and Field. Mrs. Eve Hebrank, Head Coach Junior High Volleyball. Mrs. Debbie Young, Head Coach Varsity Softball. Mrs. Nancy Torella, Assistant Drama Club Sponsor. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Comments? All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? None. Motion passes. Thank you. A motion is needed to approve the additions, deletions to the volunteer list pending successful completion and receipt of all required clearances under Act 24, Act 34, Act 114, Act 151, and Act 168 as indicated. Mr. Mike Young, Volunteer Assistant Varsity Softball. Mr. Bill Pierce, Volunteer Assistant Varsity Softball. Mrs. Ann Romano, Volunteer Assistant Junior High Volleyball Assistant. Mr. Tony Zamansky, Volunteer Assistant Basketball. And do I have a motion? Comments? All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? I have to abstain as the one, Mrs. Ann Romanoff is my daughter, who will be a volunteer. So we have one abstention to the votes.
Because that's a conflict of interest, you'll have to fill out the
Yeah.
form with the secretary.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. We need a motion to approve the following revised job descriptions as submitted in Exhibit A4. Confidential Administrative Assistant, Business Office Administrative Assistant, and High School Secretary. Do I have a motion? Comments? All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? None. Motion passes. Thank you. Under 5, motion is needed to approve the compensation plan for confidential administrative assistants commencing February 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2026, and appoint Mrs. Jamie Spearing as confidential administrative assistant effective February 1st, 2021 at the prorated salary of $47,000 for the 2020-2021 school year as submitted in Exhibit A5. And do I have a motion?
Motion.
Comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you. Under B, Finance, a motion is needed to approve Resolution 2020-2021-4, authorization to participate in Aaron IU 28 Cooperative Purchasing Program for the school year 2021-2022 as submitted in Exhibit B1. Do I have a motion? Comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. B2, a motion is needed to approve a contribution to the 2020-2021 Penn State University New Kensington Campus ABC Create STEAM program by the Leesburg Area School District in the amount of $2,500 as submitted in Exhibit B2. And do I have a motion? Comments? All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. B3, a motion is needed to acknowledge receipt of the following November and December 2020 financial reports and to ratify and approve the expenditures expressly set forth therein. Cash receipts, Exhibit B3. Tax collectors report, Exhibit B4. General fund bills, Exhibit B5. Treasurer's report, Exhibit B6. Revenue Detailed Report, Exhibit B7, Monthly Expenditures Report, Exhibit B8, Access Report, Exhibit B9, Construction Account Report, Exhibit B10, and Quarterly Scholarship Summary, Exhibit B11. Do I have a motion? Comments? All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Under C, legislative issues, a motion is needed to approve amendments of the following administrative regulations as submitted. 111, lesson plans, Exhibit C1. 203, immunizations and communicable diseases, Exhibit C2. 209, health examinations, screenings, Exhibit C3. 314, physical examination, Exhibit C4. 318, attendance and tardiness, Exhibit C5. 331, job-related expenses, Exhibit C6. 332, working periods, Exhibit C7. 334, sick leave, Exhibit C8. 340, responsibility for student welfare, Exhibit C9. 705, facilities and workplace safety, Exhibit C10. 803, school calendar, Exhibit C11. 904, public attendance at school events, Exhibit C12. 907, school visitors, Exhibit C13. And do I have a motion? Comments? All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Under D, board-related issues, a motion is needed to approve additions, deletions to the bus driver and bus driver substitutes list submitted by W.L. Roenick for the 2020-2021 school year, pending successful completion and receipt of all required clearances under Act 24, Act 34, Act 114, Act 151, and Act 168 as indicated. Mr. James David Rupert. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Comments? All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? None. Motion passes. Thank you. A motion is needed to authorize the board secretary to cast the Lenape Technical School, Armstrong County Area Vocational Technical School ballots for the JOC election of officers, Exhibit D2. Do I have a motion? Comments? These are the ballots that were in our folder, so we will print your name, date it, and sign it, and then we can leave them up at the table here and give them to Ms. Turner after the meeting.
You also have to vote on the motion and do your individual ballots.
To vote on the,
Yes, the D2 motion has been made to allow the board secretary to cast these ballots, and then you each also have to submit your individual ballots.
okay, so we need a motion to pass the ballots?
You already
Okay.
made the motion and
Okay.
it's seconded. We just have to vote on it.
Okay, all those in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Tricia. We can fill those out. Today is the 27th.
Oh, you know what? I have one. I don't vote. Here, you got mine.
Okay, moving on. Item D3, a motion is needed to approve the updated emergency operations plan as submitted, Exhibit D3. Do I have a motion? Comments? All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Under D4, a motion is needed to approve the revision to the Leechburg Area School District's Health and Safety Plan to extend the use of each Wednesday as a virtual instruction day through the end of the school year. Do I have a motion? Comments? do we need a date or just the end of the school
Yeah,
year?
End of the 2021 school year.
End of the 2021 school year. Thank you. All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you. Ms. Turner, do we have any public comment on non-agenda items? Okay, thank you. And can we have the announcement of the date, time, and place of future meetings? Do you want me to read those off since I'm up here with it? Okay, the Public Works Session Agenda Setting Meeting will occur on Wednesday, February 10th, 2021 at 7:30 PM, Leechburg High School Auditorium. Executive session will be at 6:30 PM in the Leechburg High School Library. The regular board meeting, Wednesday, we'll hold Wednesday, February 24th, 2021, 7:30 PM, Leechburg High School Auditorium. Executive session, 6:30 PM at the Leechburg High School Library. And if there are no others, yes.
Before you adjourn, Ms. Nix, when you talked about the summer school for the enrichment, is that for all students in the district? Is that
Yeah,
if you
so
just had an issue?
It's tiered a little bit. It's gonna be offered to everybody. There's gonna be certain targeted students as well. And elementary is gonna be open to everybody, but Dave and Doug they're gonna present their plan to you at the first meeting in February. Yeah, so you'll have all the details by then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn at 8:40 PM? Comments? All those in favor? Against? Abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you, and thank you, everybody.